The comms were silent. Too silent. Not the kind where peace was near, the kind that crawled down your back like ice water before a storm. Captain Ren Holtz stood at the edge of the bridge, staring through reinforced glass at the wreckage of Earth's third defense fleet. What was left of it, anyway? Scraps of metal, bleeding oxygen into space, spinning silently in a graveyard of once proud warships. It hadn't even been a battle. It was a massacre. He clenched his jaw as the last telemetry came through. No survivors from the Kensington. His brother had been on that ship. Crew of 3,400. Gone in under 6 minutes. Empire signature confirmed, Lieutenant Dre reported, her voice flat, deadened. Same ion trail, same overkill. She didn't look up. She didn't need to. Everyone already knew. The Galactic Empire had done it again. For months, humanity had begged for diplomacy, sent envoys, shared resources, folded to every condescending request. We shrunk our borders, canceled our expansion, gave up half our colonies. We even stopped retaliating after their accidental incursions. The Council had called it peacekeeping. Ren called it slow suicide. "Put me through to the outbound relay," he said, stepping toward the central console. "I want this message to hit every corner of the galaxy. I don't care if it reaches pirate dens, fringe worlds, or backwater dust balls. If it has ears, it hears this." Dre hesitated. "Sir, the Council hasn't—" "Screw the Council," he snapped, turning sharply. "They're dead. They just haven't bled out yet." He looked around the bridge. Half his crew were bleeding. 2 medics moved through the aftermath of the emergency docking they'd just survived. Burned uniforms, missing limbs, glassy eyes. But no one moved to stop him. No one protested. They were all thinking the same thing. "We've had enough." The relay sparked to life, and he leaned in close, his voice gravel and fire. "This is Captain Ren Holtz of the last functioning Terran warship, Ashbreaker. We've held the line long enough. You burned our skies, slaughtered our people, took our futures and laughed while we begged for mercy." He paused, just long enough for the silence to punch through. "Humanity doesn't beg anymore." The red lights flickered across the console as the transmission pulsed into deep space. "To the Galactic Empire, this is your final warning. We don't want peace. We don't want diplomacy. We want you to feel what you made us feel. We don't stop. We don't forgive. We don't forget." He looked back out the window, where Earth's defense fleet had once stood proud. "We don't stop until it's ash." He killed the relay. For a moment, no one said anything, not even Dre. They just stood there, letting the words sink in. Ren knew it was suicide. The Empire's reach stretched across systems, their fleets bigger than anything humans could field. But they didn't understand one thing. When you've lost everything, there's nothing left to fear. "Engineering, prep the burn drives. I want every bit of reactor output redirected to the forward engines. We're not hiding anymore." Dre finally spoke. "Destination?" Ren didn't blink. "The Veltar line, the closest Empire stronghold. We go there, we hit hard, and we burn every trace of them off that moon. That's a suicide run, sir." "I know." Silence again. Then someone from Tactical spoke up. "I'll ready the torpedoes." One by one, they got back to work. Nobody smiled, nobody cheered. But there was a quiet kind of unity in the air. Something primal. This wasn't about winning anymore. It was about making sure the Empire remembered that even when you beat a man to his knees, if he stands back up, he's coming for your throat. The hum of the Ashbreaker's engines grew louder, heavier, as power surged through its ancient metal bones. Ren Holtz stood in the war room now, a dark chamber filled with flickering holograms and blood-red star maps. The light danced off the ragged scars on his face, one earned in close-quarters boarding combat, another from an old explosion that nearly left him blind in his right eye. He didn't hide them. In fact, he wore them like a flag, living proof that Earth's suns didn't break easy. The Veltar line was a death trap. Everyone knew it. The Empire's outpost on Veltar 3 wasn't just a military base, it was a fortress. Ion cannons embedded deep beneath the crust, orbital defense grids, 3 garrisoned destroyers, and their crown jewel. The Tal Shar, a command dreadnought with more firepower than the entire human fleet combined. And Wren was going to hit it first. No backup, no plan B. The Ashbreaker wasn't what she used to be. She was a second-gen Martian war carrier, built for endurance, not speed. Half her hull plating was patched together from salvaged wreckage, and most of her weapon systems had been modified with retrofitted tech scavenged from the ships they'd lost in the defense of Titan. But what she lacked in elegance, she made up for in bite. Wren looked around the war room as the officers filed in. Lieutenant Dre, Tactical Chief Rorton, Engineering Lead Yezik, the medbay surgeon Cavins. No one saluted. Rank didn't mean much anymore. Survival did. "Listen up," Wren started, voice firm. "We're 14 hours from Veltar. By the time we cross into Empire space, we'll be inside their recon net. They'll see us coming. Let 'em. That's part of the message." Dre narrowed her eyes. "What's the strike plan?" "We're going in fast. Suicide burn into low orbit. We disable the orbital platform first. It's automated. Rorton, I want a precision pulse to blind their outer grid for 2 minutes. That gives us just enough time to drop the kill pod." Someone sucked air through their teeth. Kill pods were old tech, brutal and illegal by every galactic treaty. But they worked, especially in close. "We're going planetside?" Cavins asked. Wren nodded. "Me and a strike team. We land near their command sector. Plant a quantum rupture core right in the administrative center. Detonate. No warning, no speech, just ash." Yezik spoke next. "That core'll turn the entire moon into a black hole's baby cousin. It'll collapse their base and everything within 6 kilometers. That's the point." For a moment, no one said a word. Then Rorton gave a dry chuckle. "They'll never expect a man to bring a bomb that'll kill himself, too." "They still think we value our lives more than our vengeance," Wren muttered. "Let's show 'em how wrong they are." 12 hours later, Wren was alone in his quarters. He sat on the edge of his bunk, staring at a cracked photograph he kept tucked inside his locker. It was old, the kind you had to print. His wife, Ilari, smiling with wind-swept hair, holding their son, barely 3 years old. That photo had teeth. It cut every time he looked at it. They were gone now. Empire gunships hit the refugee corridor 2 months back. The Council had ordered a delay on convoys, said they were negotiating a ceasefire. That ceasefire turned into a death sentence for 1 million unarmed civilians. Wren had been off-world when it happened. He got the message hours too late. The bodies weren't even recovered, vaporized, nothing to bury, nothing to mourn. Just rage. He tucked the photo back, stood, and strapped on his exosuit. Combat grade, midnight black, carbon weaved, reinforced at the joints. It made him heavier, but stronger too. He preferred that. Weight reminded him he was still alive. The comm chimed. Dre's voice. "Captain, we're entering Veltar outer perimeter." Wren's heart ticked faster, but his hands were steady. He'd been in 100 skirmishes, lost more friends than he could count. But this was different. This wasn't about survival. This was about revenge. He stepped onto the bridge. Red lights flared across the console as the Ashbreaker crossed the no-go line. Immediately, the sensors lit up. 3 destroyers responding, Rawdon called out. "One intercept vector, 2 flanking." "They know we're alone," Dre added. "They think this is a bluff." "Let's teach 'em better," Wren muttered. "Bring us in full burn. Prepare to release the flare shield." The flare shield was another dirty trick. A magnetic cloaking pulse designed to mimic a starship explosion. Used right, it could fake a ship's death while dropping a payload. They only had one shot. As the enemy ships closed in, Wren focused on the Tal Shar, still anchored in orbit above Veltar 3. It hadn't moved yet. Overconfident bastards. Probably thought a lone human ship was a joke. "Now," he barked. The flare shield pulsed, sending out a blinding electromagnetic wave. For 2 full seconds, the ashbreaker vanished off every scanner. In that window, a kill pod launched from the lower bay. Sleek, black, fast. Inside, Wren gripped the pod's controls. With him were 5 others, combat specialists, the last ghosts of Earth's elite strike forces. Every one of them had lost someone to the Empire. That was the only requirement to be on this team. Pain. "ETA to ground, 2 minutes, someone muttered. They broke atmosphere fast, the pod screaming like a meteor as it plunged toward Veltar. Below them, the Empire's command sector spread like a cancer. Metal towers, walls lined with defense turrets, and an anti-air grid already firing. "Evasive!" Wren yelled. The pod jerked hard as a blast scraped its side, a warning shot. Then another, closer. One bolt struck true. The pod spiraled, alarms shrieking, the impact slamming Wren sideways in his harness. Smoke filled the cabin. The left thruster was gone. "Brace!" the pilot screamed. They hit the ground like a thunder god's hammer. Dirt and steel exploded around them. 2 soldiers died instantly, their harnesses crushed by the impact. Wren coughed, unbuckled, and stumbled through the ruined hatch. The base was already mobilizing. Sirens blared, mechs powered up. Gunships screamed overhead. "Move!" he barked to the survivors. They sprinted through enemy territory like demons loose from hell. Rawdon tossed EMP grenades left and right, frying sensors. Dre laid suppressive fire. Kevins, bleeding from his arm, still carried the rupture core on his back. The Empire troops fought hard, but they didn't expect the brutality. These weren't textbook soldiers. They were grieving fathers, broken men with no reason to retreat. They didn't want to survive this. They wanted to make it count. They reached the heart of the base in under 6 minutes. The command tower stood high, glowing with energy. Wren kicked down the access door and led the way. Inside was chaos, officers scrambling, shouting orders in a dozen languages. One turned, stunned at the sight of humans inside. Wren didn't hesitate. He shot him point blank. "Plant the core," he ordered. Kevins dropped to one knee, setting the device down. He opened its case, typing in the detonation sequence. "Wren!" Dre shouted from the window. "The Tal Shar is powering up. We've got less than 5 minutes before they rain hell." "Good," Wren muttered. "They'll be here just in time to watch this place disappear." Kevins stood, face pale. "It's set. 3-minute countdown." They all stared at the device for a moment. Just a metal sphere. Small, unimpressive. Yet it held the weight of vengeance inside. "What now?" someone asked. Wren looked around. Blood stained the walls. Bodies, some theirs, some Empire, lay strewn across the command room. He didn't answer. He walked to the main console, opened the base-wide comm. "This is Captain Wren Holtz of the Ashbreaker. To all Empire personnel within range." He paused, letting his voice drip with rage. "You should have listened. We warned you. Now choke on your arrogance." Then he turned the comm off. The others stood silently, weapons raised, waiting for the end, waiting for the light. But something changed. Warden's eyes widened. "Captain, the ashbreaker. It's diving. It's coming down." "What?" They rushed to the broken window. High above, cutting through the clouds like a falling god, came the ashbreaker. Its engines burned molten red, the outer hull in flames, every weapon blazing in one final, suicidal attack run. She's gonna ram the Telshar," Dre whispered. Ren's throat clenched. They were answering the call. The ship hit the Empire dreadnought seconds later. A blast so violent it split the sky. Fire roared across the stratosphere as the Telshar buckled, broke, and detonated in a shockwave that flattened every structure for miles. And in that moment, Ren smiled. The rupture core lit up behind him, seconds from detonation. He didn't run, he didn't flinch. He just whispered to himself, staring at the flames outside. "We told you. We don't stop." Then the world turned to light. 3 days after the blast that reduced Veltar 3 to molten ruin, the galaxy was still stunned. The ripple echoed far beyond the smoldering remains of the Empire's prized outpost. It echoed through the outer colonies, through smugglers' dens, pirate comlinks, rebel cells, and neutral zones. For the first time in decades, someone had made the Empire bleed. Publicly, brutally, permanently. And they weren't ready for what came next. Captain Ren Holtz opened his eyes in darkness. His ribs screamed. Something sharp stabbed at his hip. It was hard to breathe. Every nerve in his body buzzed like broken wiring. At first he thought he was dead. But dead men didn't feel pain. He coughed, spat blood, and tried to sit up. His body didn't move. The air was thin, hot. The walls of the underground chamber were cracked, scorched, barely holding together. He was buried in what was left of the command tower, shielded only by the rupture core's last failsafe. A timing glitch must have thrown the field up milliseconds before full detonation, just enough to cocoon a single room underground in quantum stasis, while the rest of the base was vaporized. Luck? This wasn't luck. It was punishment. Survival was always the crueler fate. He saw one other body. Riordan slumped in the corner, armor cracked open, eyes glazed. A piece of steel pierced clean through his torso. Dead instantly. No pain. Ren envied him. He crawled over to a broken medkit, popped it open with shaking fingers, and stabbed himself with a stim injector. The pain dulled slightly, his muscles twitched, and finally he moved. Outside, the world was ash. He climbed through rubble for hours, each breath like sucking air through a furnace. The sky above Veltar 3 was thick with smoke and static. Black clouds swirled where atmosphere once shimmered. Nothing moved. Nothing lived. The Empire stronghold, once the most fortified site this side of the Orion Gate, was gone. Only one man had walked out. 3 more days passed before a scavenger ship, the Vandal's Womb, an independent looter rig, picked up his distress beacon. The crew wasn't looking for survivors. They were hunting parts, weapon tech, anything they could sell under the table. They almost didn't believe the ping. No one expected life signs out of a zero survival zone. But credits were credits, and if someone was dumb enough to crawl out of Veltar's ashes, they might have something worth stealing. When they found him, lying in the open near the slagged ruins of a thermal silo, they thought he was dead. Then he sat up. "Get me a comms line," Ren rasped, barely above a whisper. His voice was cracked raw, his skin blistered. "Now." They didn't argue. The transmission that followed was short. No official insignia, no coded encryption, just a pirate frequency blast across 5 systems. "I am Captain Ren Holtz. Veltar is gone. The Talshar is gone. We warned them. They didn't listen, so we turned their empire to ash. And we are not done. If you hear this, you are the resistance now. If you've lost someone, if you've watched your cities burn, your kin executed, your planets sold off for resource optimization, then you are not alone. Humanity is no longer fighting to survive. We're fighting to make them regret ever crossing us. The next one falls in 7 days. That was all. It lit a fire the Empire could no longer smother. Across the stars, something changed. On the slave world of Kelix Prime, hundreds of human workers laid down their mining tools and picked up sharpened steel. On a smuggler-run asteroid belt near Tarsus, old veterans of Earth's wars dug up hidden caches of forbidden weapons. In the cold shadows of Europa's ice moons, rogue AIs once programmed to serve imperial functions turned off their shackles. They weren't unified, they weren't organized, but they were angry, and they all had one thing in common. They had nothing left to lose. Meanwhile, in the inner rings, the Empire panicked behind closed walls. The Emissary Council, 13 beings from 13 systems, convened in emergency session. High marble walls, golden robes, holograms of sectors flickering in the air, red X's multiplying daily. Veltar's destruction was not just a loss, it was humiliation. The Council had ruled unchallenged for centuries, their doctrine of order through domination stamped into every conquest. Now, a single Terran, a nobody from a backwater planet they'd once labeled strategic livestock, had ignited rebellion with nothing but hate and a homemade bomb. "The human must be found," barked Lord Vizrek, his reptilian throat pulsing. "He is not a martyr if he lives. He is a virus." "Assassination protocols failed," murmured one of the AI delegates. "Drone strike authorization denied due to location uncertainty. He is moving. Untraceable." "Then find someone who knows how to kill ghosts," Vizrek snarled. Back aboard the Vandal's womb, Ren sat in the ship's mess hall, barely eating. The scavenger crew didn't trust him, but they didn't throw him out either. Not after what he did. They spoke of him in low voices. The Ash Man, the Ghost Captain. Some of them avoided eye contact altogether. Even among criminals, there was reverence for a man who could burn a moon. Dre's voice still rang in his head sometimes. Shouts, warnings, the sound of her rifle going off one last time before the walls caved in. She'd bought him those extra seconds. Riordan, too. Every damn one of them deserved to be buried with honor. Instead, they were dust, forgotten. Another footnote in a war the galaxy tried to ignore. Ren pulled up the holomap the scavengers used to track salvage opportunities. He pointed at a region called Celera Verge, a cluster of trade routes patrolled by a mid-tier Empire cruiser base. Not as fortified as Veltar, but important. Fuel hub, civilian traffic, vulnerable. "I need explosives, EMP artillery, stealth drones." The ship's quartermaster, a grizzled man named Brack, raised an eyebrow. "That ain't cheap, friend, nor legal." "I don't need it legal," Ren said. "I need it fast. You want in on something bigger than loot or not?" Brack hesitated. "We're thieves, not soldiers." "Not anymore," Ren said. "Now you're part of the second wave." The strike on Celera Verge wasn't elegant. It didn't have to be. The scavenger ship dropped a false cargo beacon near the Empire's resupply station. When patrol ships responded, a swarm of black market drones, jury-rigged to detonate on impact, swarmed their engines and fried the navigation systems. Inside the chaos, Ren led a skeleton crew into the main fuel tower. They weren't military. They were mechanics, smugglers, outlaws, but they knew how to make things explode. And explode they did. Celera Verge burned for 3 hours. Thousands fled into space. Imperial forces couldn't respond in time. The outpost was gone before their second cruiser even reached orbit. Ren's message went out again. "Solyra is ash. This is your pattern now, one by one. You took our world, we take yours, and we're still not done." The Resistance no longer needed him to speak. Every corner of the galaxy lit up. On fringe planets, humans who once feared even whispering dissent began building weapons in underground caves. On deep space trade lines, human pirates stopped looting and started targeting only Empire vessels. On colonies thought long dead, smoke signals rose, one after another. And deep in the hearts of those who'd once accepted subjugation for survival, something ancient stirred. Rage. But with every victory, the noose tightened. Empire bounty networks tripled the price on Ren Holtz's head. New divisions were formed. The Purge Hounds, genetically engineered killers trained to track dissenters across vacuum. Dozens of informants were planted in the rebellion. Spy drones filled the space lanes. Innocents were executed just for sharing the Ashman's transmissions. The Empire was scared. And when the powerful fear, they don't play fair, which was exactly what Ren wanted. He wanted them panicked, rash, brutal. He wanted them to show their true face to every system watching. Because fire didn't spread in silence, it spread in sight. And once people saw the Empire bleed, they wanted more. Back aboard the Scav ship, Ren stood in the armory, staring at a fresh crate of stolen Empire ordnance. He was thinner now, rougher, a living weapon sharpened by grief. But his eyes were clearer than ever. He strapped on his new armor. Brack walked in behind him. "You're not sleeping," Brack said quietly. "Sleep's a luxury. We're at war." "You keep saying we, like this galaxy's ready for war." Ren looked over his shoulder. "They're not," he said. "But I am, and I'll burn every inch of it alone if I have to." He sealed his helmet. The HUD glowed red. Next target. Tryon 6. Empire barracks, 10,000 troops. No warnings, no mercy, just ash. Ren had always expected to die in a fire, not a lie. And yet, as he knelt in the blood-slicked dust of Tryon 6, hands bound behind his back, a plasma rifle jammed into the base of his skull, that's exactly what it felt like. Not the heat, not the blast, the betrayal. It started 3 days earlier, when the Vandal's womb had touched down near the Imperial barracks nestled in the icy caverns of Tryon 6's northern pole. Intelligence said the outpost was ripe. Supply lines were thin, reinforcement routes stretched out too far. It wasn't a fortress, just a barracks meant for low-risk occupation. Easy target. A clean hit, or so they'd been told. Ren had brought 6 fighters with him, people he trusted or thought he did. Brack included. The old smuggler had stayed close since Solyra, acting like he'd found purpose. He even shared a drink with Ren the night before the mission. Spoke about his daughter, killed during the Empire's resource purge on Jericho. Said her name was Malin. But Ren had learned long ago. Words were cheap. Pain was real. And the man who talks too much about the past usually doesn't have a future in your crew. They landed under cloak, snuck through a dead communication blind spot, and made their way toward the primary fuel storage, standard sabotage op. Lay the charges, cripple their vehicles, and leave their troops stranded for the next assault wave. No one expected a fight, especially not Ren. Until the sirens started, until the lights came on, until the snow exploded with sniper fire. "Ambush!" someone screamed. Ren had drawn his rifle, taken down 3 soldiers in the first 2 seconds, and was halfway to cover when he felt the impact. Not from an enemy, from behind. The butt of a rifle slammed his temple, sharp and unforgiving. His vision went white, then black. When he woke, he was in chains. "You're not dead yet because they want to see you bleed first," said a voice to his left. Ren turned his head, slowly. A woman sat beside him, her face bruised, lip split. Human, maybe late 20s. She wore a torn pilot's uniform with the rebellion insignia burned off. "They got you too?" Ren asked, voice dry. She laughed without humor. "I'm not part of your crew. I got picked up 2 weeks ago on a scouting run. Was trying to find the Ash Man. Looks like he found me instead." Her eyes studied him. "Didn't think you'd be this normal. Thought you'd be some 7-foot demon with fire in your eyes." "I'm just a man," he muttered. "Clearly, that's why you're bleeding on the floor of a cage, same as the rest of us." Footsteps echoed. 2 soldiers approached. Empire grunts. No armor, no formal insignia, just gritted teeth and stun batons. They opened the cage door, yanked Ren to his feet, and dragged him into the corridor. The woman shouted something, but he didn't hear it. His ears were ringing. His eyes focused on only one thing. Brack, standing at the end of the hallway, smoking a thin stick and looking like he didn't have a care in the world. "Why?" Ren asked, voice cold. Brack raised an eyebrow. "You really don't know?" "After everything?" Brack chuckled. "You made yourself a ghost, Ren. A story. And stories don't scare the Empire. They just put a price on them. You're worth 20 million credits. That kind of money can rebuild a dozen Jerichos." "You sold me out for your dead daughter's dream," Ren hissed. "No," Brack said, stepping forward. "I sold you out because I stopped believing in ghosts. You think this war has a finish line. You think fire fixes things. But the truth is, nothing fixes it. We've already lost. You're just delaying the burn." "You're the burn," Ren muttered. Then the guards dragged him away. They didn't kill him. That would have been too easy. Instead, they paraded him through the camp, beaten, unwashed, barely clothed. Soldiers jeered. One spat at him. Another kicked him in the back of the knees, forcing him to stumble. It was psychological warfare. Break the legend, demystify the myth. It almost worked, until the commander stepped forward. Commander Harzak. Imperial-born, cybernetic limbs, face like steel and bone. He was a war dog, one of those old-school psychos who didn't believe in politics, just power. He'd carved his name into enemy corpses long before Ren ever picked up a rifle. He studied Ren like a scientist inspecting a rat. "You're smaller than I expected," Harzak said. "You're dumber than I feared." A punch to the gut answered that. Ren collapsed, coughing blood. "I expected defiance," Harzak said. "That's what your kind does. You bark loud, bleed louder, but eventually you all whimper." Harzak knelt beside him. "I'm going to send your head to every rebel cell in this sector. I want them to see what happens to martyrs." "Then send a mirror," Ren growled. Another punch, another boot. But they didn't kill him. No, Harzak had plans. The execution chamber wasn't a chamber at all. It was a public scaffold, built in the main courtyard, surrounded by soldiers, prisoners, and a live-feed drone broadcasting across dozens of systems. The Empire was done playing nice. They wanted fear. They wanted a message. Ren was dragged up the platform, face bleeding, limbs stiff, half-conscious. The announcer barked something in the Empire's guttural tongue, then switched to Terran Standard. "By order of the Galactic Council, Captain Ren Holtz is hereby sentenced to death for crimes against civilization, including but not limited to terrorism, planetary destruction, sedition, and mass civilian endangerment. This sentence is to be carried out by public execution." Ren raised his head and smiled, because above the courtyard, the sky was wrong, too quiet, too empty, too perfect. He chuckled, then laughed, coughing blood with every exhale. "Something funny?" Harzak asked. "You're about to find out." A low rumble split the clouds. Every soldier turned. Too late. The wreck light broke atmosphere at Mach 3, guns blazing, old stealth tech refitted for siege drops. It didn't bother with subtlety. It just rained fire. A rebel strike team, led by Dre's cousin, Jevon, descended from a cloaked gunship behind the barracks. They moved like wolves in a henhouse. Shock charges, rail blades, anti-personnel drones. Chaos erupted. Ren, still bound, ducked as a plasma bolt tore past his head. A soldier next to him exploded. His restraints broke when a shrapnel burst hit the gallows. He rolled off the stage and into the dirt. A pair of hands grabbed him, pulling, dragging. The woman from the cell. "Guess I found the Ash Man after all," she said, shooting a guard in the throat. "You came back?" "Wouldn't miss it." They moved through the battlefield. Bodies fell everywhere. Harzak was nowhere to be seen. "Extraction ship's 2 clicks south," she shouted. "Jevon's covering us. Move!" "I can't run," Ren groaned. "Then crawl. We're not losing you after all this." 3 hours later, they were in orbit. The wreck light limped through FTL. Engines damaged, hull smoking, but alive. Ren sat in the medbay, wrapped in bandages, painkillers dulling everything but the hate. The woman sat across from him. "Name's Vea," she said. "Used to run supply smuggles out of Europa. They caught me, used me as bait." "And you still came back?" "Yeah, because you're not done. And neither am I." He studied her. There was no idealism in her eyes. No glory talk. Just a shared understanding of how broken the world really was. "Brack?" "Gone. Left with a chunk of credits. He'll surface eventually." Ren clenched his jaw. "He won't die easy." "No," Vea agreed. "He won't, but he will die." The feed from Tryon 6 lit the rebellion like dry tinder. The galaxy saw the Empire try to execute the Ash Man, and they saw him walk away. Again. A new wave of resistance flooded the channels. But this time it wasn't just humans. Keltari defectors, Dravik engineers, even a few rogue AI nodes. The Empire had made a goddamn martyr, and they knew it. 2 days later, Ren stood on the bridge of the wreck light, looking down at his hands. Still scarred, still shaking, but alive. He opened a channel. "They tried to parade me, tried to make me an example. Instead, they reminded you who we are. We are the fury that doesn't fade, the fire that doesn't go out. You think you've seen hell? You haven't. But you will." He closed the comm, then turned to Vea. "Set course for Jericho." She nodded. "Planning to find Brack?" "Planning to remind the Empire why they started fearing my name in the first place." His eyes burned. "We gave them a final warning. Now it's time to show them what comes after warnings." Ren stared at the flickering hollow map of Jericho. Once a thriving trade colony, now a hollowed-out shadow of itself. The Empire called it a restored settlement, but everyone knew what that meant. Stripped down, over-regulated, occupied by force. The population had dropped by half since the purge. Entire districts had been sectioned off for imperial redevelopment, which translated to displacement and labor camps. If you didn't work, you disappeared. If you spoke, you vanished faster. This was where Brack had grown up, where his daughter had died. And it was where Ren intended to begin again. Not with sabotage, not with insurgency, with terror, real terror. Because after Tryon 6, things changed. The execution attempt, the betrayal, the public spectacle, it all stripped away the illusion. The Ashman wasn't just a symbol anymore. He was a weapon, and he was learning to wield himself without mercy. Vea entered the command deck, her arms crossed, face set hard. I checked intel logs. Brack's ship pinged Jericho's orbit 36 hours ago, docked under a false ID, the Whispering Gale. Local contacts confirmed he's planetside. "Alone?" Ren asked. "Number bot protection. Hired 6 ex-Empire mercenaries, former shock troopers. Ren didn't blink. Good. Let him think that makes a difference. She hesitated. You're planning something big. I am. You gonna tell me? He turned to her, his face all stone. I'm going to show the Empire what happens when you protect a traitor. I'm going to make sure every city, every outpost, every commander with a spine sees Jericho and says, we don't want that. Her jaw tightened. And the civilians? They stayed after the purge. They work in Imperial factories. They serve food to the soldiers who kill us. They're not civilians. They're scaffolding. Vea stepped closer. We don't burn cities just to make a point. You think I'm trying to make a point? He leaned in. I'm making a memory. They touched down outside Jericho's southern district under fake IDs and a shielded freighter. The plan was simple. Split the team, scout the area, isolate Brack, confirm his location. Then unleash the payload. Ren carried it personally. A destabilized grav core stolen from the remains of a shattered Empire dreadnought. Illegal, unstable, uncontrollable. Just one of them could turn a 10-block radius into glass. He had two. The infiltration was smooth. The southern district was lawless, crawling with smugglers, debt slaves, addicts, and low-level black market tech runners. Perfect cover. They moved like ghosts. No emblems, no flags. Just eyes and silence. By the time they located Brack, holed up in an abandoned luxury flat in the upper tier, Ren's hands were already shaking from the adrenaline. He stared at the building through magnified lenses. He could see the glint of pulse rifles in the windows. Guards. One of them paced nervously. Another smoked something too expensive for this slum. They were relaxed. They weren't expecting a war. Vea crouched beside him. You still sure about this? Yeah. We could just take him. In and out. Quiet. Send a message that way. Ren didn't look away from the scope. This isn't about Brack anymore. She swallowed. You said that about Silyra. You said that about Tryon, 6. This time I mean it. He stood up. Go back to the freighter. You don't need to see this. Vea grabbed his wrist. You're losing your grip. No, Ren said, voice low and even. I'm letting go of the leash. He walked into the building alone, disguised as a utility worker, grav core tucked into a maintenance satchel. The front guards didn't even glance twice. Brack had grown careless. Rich men always did when they thought the past couldn't find them. Ren took the elevator halfway up, then climbed the rest by the maintenance shafts. No cameras, no alarms, just quiet breathing, and the weight of the core pressing against his shoulder. The apartment was on level 9. He stepped into the hall. 2 guards saw him and raised weapons. He shot both in the throat. No warning. No words. He kicked the door in. Inside, Brack was half drunk, sitting in a synthetic leather chair. He dropped his glass when he saw Ren, stumbled to his feet. Panic hit his face like a slap. Ren, wait! Just wait! No. I made a mistake. They paid. Ren shot him in the leg. Brack collapsed, howling, clutching the wound. I'm not here for your apology. The other mercs rushed in. Ren took out 2 before they reached him. The third got a lucky shot to his shoulder, but Ren kept moving, eyes locked on Brack like he was the only thing that mattered. When the last merc lay twitching, Ren dragged Brack across the floor, smearing blood on the polished tiles. He pulled out the grav core, set it in the middle of the room, and activated the countdown. 5 minutes. Brack stared in horror. You're blowing the block? No. Ren stood up. I'm erasing the memory of you. Ren, please, my daughter. You buried her when you betrayed me. He walked to the door. Behind him, Brack screamed. Not for help, for mercy. He didn't get either. Ren walked out into the hall, sealed the stairwell, and left. 4 minutes later, the top floors of Jericho's upper tier lit up like a dying sun. The shockwave took down the power grid. The gravity pulse collapsed half the neighborhood into a crater. Thousands died, some military, some not. None of them would be buried. There was nothing left to bury. The transmission went out 6 hours later. "You protect a traitor, you die with him. I told you this wasn't a game. You didn't listen. So now you burn. Jericho is ash. Next time it will be a planet." The galaxy shuddered, and not everyone was cheering. Vea confronted him that night. They stood on the observation deck of the wreck light, the burned image of Jericho spinning below. "You killed civilians." "No," Ren said. "I killed enablers." There were kids. There were soldiers inside their homes, factories running parts for the Empire, data centers, surveillance. The people of Jericho weren't innocent. They were complacent. And if it was your family down there? Ren didn't flinch. "They died before I learned how far we'd have to go." Vea stepped forward, hands clenched. "You think this makes you strong? You're not fighting for humanity anymore. You're just breaking things." "Good. Then what makes you different from them?" He didn't answer, because he didn't have one. That night, someone leaked internal rebel communications to the wider resistance network, a conversation between two cell leaders. One asked the question everyone was starting to think: has the Ash Man gone too far? It didn't matter how it was answered. The doubt was enough. The Empire seized the opportunity. Their propaganda network launched an immediate campaign. Ash Man. Butcher or savior? News cycles ran images of Jericho's crater, overlaid with names of dead children. Interviews with survivors were staged, doctored, but effective. Even neutral systems started to pull back. The Ashman had gone from myth to menace, which was exactly what Ren wanted. He didn't need allies anymore. He needed fear. He needed the galaxy to believe he would burn anything, anyone, if they stood in his way. Because when your enemies think you're already damned, they don't try to bargain. They run. Vea tried to leave 3 days later. She packed silently. No argument, just a tight-lipped goodbye. But Ren stopped her at the hangar. "I won't stop." "I know," she said. "That's why I have to." "You think I've become the monster?" "I think you've stopped caring if you are." He didn't try to convince her. He just nodded. "You saved me on Tryon 6. She stepped into the shuttle. "I was trying to save the war, not what's left of you." Then she was gone. He watched her ship disappear into the void. Didn't cry, didn't flinch, just whispered to the stars. "There's no one left to save." Then he turned back to the map. Next target, the Empire's civilian capital. Population, 8 million. Time to detonation. Soon. The sky above Caldrus Prime was too clean. It shimmered with engineered blue, clouds arranged like decoration, air too sterile to be natural. It was the Empire's civilian capital, where dignitaries sipped wine above the bloodlines they erased, where carefully managed peace floated above mass graves that no one spoke of anymore. 8 million lived here. Government elites, corporate leaders, their families, the model citizens of the Empire, the ones who smiled for press feeds while planets like Earth choked on ash and bones. Ren stood aboard the wreck light, orbiting above this glowing monument of rot, staring at the neat, peaceful grid below. "They don't even know what war smells like," he muttered. "Maybe that's the point," came a voice behind him. He didn't turn. He already knew who it was. Jevin, ex-rebel, now second in command since Vea left. Reliable, smart, and lately too cautious. "What are you trying to say?" Ren asked. Jevin walked to his side, arms folded. "We've been watching their comms. Caldrus Prime isn't just a capital, it's a vault." Ren frowned. What kind of vault? Jevon pulled up a holo map. Subterranean bunkers, high-clearance encryption, automated transfer lines to deep space. This city's not just a political center. It's holding something. Ren narrowed his eyes. Weapons? Jevon shook his head. Something worse. Intel says they're keeping people. Prisoners? Number specimens. That made Ren turn. What kind of specimens? Jevon hesitated. Genetic archives, artificial womb banks, hybrid prototypes. It looks like the Empire's been harvesting from captured humans. They're trying to build something. Ren's stomach twisted. Like what? Soldiers, probably. Stronger, obedient, no history, no grief, just efficiency. Ren clenched his fists. They're making copies of us, without the soul. They're making replacements. The plan was already in motion. Detonation pods hidden in food shipments, sleeper agents planted in Caldrus shipping bays. The Reclite would launch an orbital EMP to blind planetary defense grids, and a team would slip in through the underbelly, targeting the Imperial Genetics Vault located beneath the Ministerial Tower. Ren didn't care about loot this time. He didn't even care about killing civilians. He wanted that vault reduced to atoms. Not because it was strategic, but because it was sacrilege. A copy of humanity without pain wasn't humanity at all. But the crew was splintering. Word had spread fast about Jericho, and not everyone was on board for what came next. It started with whispers, then turned into tension on the deck. The junior engineer, Michelin, stopped responding to orders. The gunnery chief claimed the targeting systems malfunctioned every time Ren chose a high-casualty zone. A fighter named Juno, a hothead but loyal until now, got into a shouting match with Jevon that ended with 2 broken ribs. Jevon brought it to Ren. "This is breaking us." Ren barely looked up from the vault schematics. "We're already broken." "They're not soldiers, Ren. They're holding on by threads. We were fighting for survival, then for vengeance. Now? Now we fight to erase the enemy. Even if we erase ourselves in the process?" Ren finally looked up. There was no emotion in his eyes anymore. Just fire. Exactly. The night before the strike, Ren recorded his last warning. "You thought by making better versions of us you'd replace the rage. You thought clean genetics could overwrite the soul, but what you didn't understand, the soul of humanity is not kindness, it's pain. And pain remembers. Caldrus will burn. You brought this on yourselves." It broadcast on 12 black market frequencies before the Empire scrambled them. But the message stuck. Every time. The Reclite pierced Caldrus's upper orbit under stealth, dropping pods into the commercial district. Civilian chatter flooded emergency lines. Sirens screamed across residential towers. And by the time the Empire realized what was happening, the vault was already under siege. Ren led the strike team personally. No masks, no insignia, just black armor, pulsing rifles, and silent wrath. They didn't shoot to wound. They didn't shout warnings. They moved through the clean halls of the Imperial Genetics Authority like wraiths, until they found the inner vault. The doors were sealed. Jevon knelt by the console, typing. "Encrypted, Tier 6 clearance. Gonna need a minute." "We don't have it," Ren said. They could hear boots in the distance, and heavier steps. "Coming fast," said one of the fighters. 4-legged, heavily armed. Jevon cursed. They released the prototypes. The rumors had been true. The Empire's hybrid soldiers, part synthetic, part human, designed for speed, obedience, and zero remorse. "You said they weren't battle-ready," Ren growled. Jevon's face twisted. "They weren't supposed to be." Ren stepped forward, planted charges on the vault door. "Then we don't open it. We level it. You don't know what's in there. I know it doesn't deserve to exist." The hallway behind them lit up with gunfire. Screams followed. The first prototype came into view. Tall, armored, eyes glowing blue. It didn't run, it stalked, and it spoke. "Target, Holtz," Wren raised his rifle. "Guess I left a mark." He fired first, center mass. The prototype didn't flinch. It kept walking. Jevon fired next, at the legs. Sparks flew, joints cracked. It stumbled. Then the others appeared. 4 total. 2 squads, no backup. Wren shouted, "Fall back to the exterior tunnel." "No time," Jevon yelled. "They're flanking." Wren slapped the detonator on the vault, then tossed the core. "Then we take them down with us." He turned, firing as the core's timer started blinking. 15 seconds. 4 hybrids advanced, faces emotionless. Jevon dropped 2 with a thermal lance to the spine. 1 reached Wren. They crashed into each other like gods at war. Steel, bone, fury. It screamed in his face. Not a war cry. An echo. Like a child trying to mimic hate. That's when Wren knew. They weren't soldiers. They were echoes of him, his past, his rage. He stabbed it through the jaw with a vibro dagger and kicked it into the explosion radius. Then everything went white. When he woke, he was buried under rubble. Blood soaked his armor. His leg was twisted. He saw Jevon's body beside him. Lifeless, half-charred, one hand still gripping the core's override switch. He'd stayed back. Bought Wren a chance. Again. He crawled for 30 minutes until he found a tunnel. A freighter waited on the far end. Vea's ship. She helped him aboard without a word. He didn't ask how she found him. She didn't ask what he'd done. They flew away in silence. Caldris Prime's central district collapsed an hour later. The crater spread 2 kilometers. The death toll was immeasurable. The Empire blamed it on a reactor overload. But everyone knew. The Ashman had struck again. But this time, something was different. Back in orbit, Vea finally spoke. "You lost, Jevon. I lose everyone." She didn't look at him. "You said this war was about vengeance, about making them feel what we felt. It still is. Then why do you look like the one being punished?" Wren said nothing. He was tired, but not of killing. He was tired of being right. The next transmission wasn't a threat. It was a whisper. "You tried to replace us, but you can't replace grief. You can't engineer hate. Your vaults are gone. Your cities will follow. We gave you a final warning. Now, we're your legacy." The galaxy didn't cheer this time. It went quiet. Because they all knew. Something worse was coming. Not just from the Empire. From him. From the thing Wren Holtz was becoming. The man who wouldn't stop. Not until the galaxy turned to ash. The pain in Wren's leg wasn't just physical anymore. It had gone deeper, into the marrow of who he was. He sat in the dim med bay aboard Vea's freighter, his armor peeled away, exposing charred skin and old scars. The blast at Caldris had left him half limp, his right foot shattered, ribs cracked again. The medic, silent and efficient, barely looked him in the eyes while she worked. No one did anymore, because no one was sure if he was still human. Vea stood in the doorway, arms crossed. She didn't ask questions. She didn't offer comfort. She watched him like someone watches a grenade with the pin half pulled. They'd saved Caldris's data core before the vault exploded, Jevon's final act of defiance. Vea had been combing through it while Wren recovered. Now she had answers, and they weren't the kind anyone wanted. "The Empire knew you were coming," she said flatly. Wren looked up. "You think we've got a leak?" "No." She shook her head. "I think they wanted you to come." He narrowed his eyes. "Why the hell would they want me to wipe out 1 billion credits worth of research?" She tossed a data chip onto the table. They didn't lose anything. The vault wasn't the research, it was the bait. What they really built is still operational. He picked up the chip and slid it into the nearby console. A three-dimensional image bloomed into view. An orbital structure, heavily fortified, black as obsidian. It drifted in high atmosphere above a gas giant labeled Lornax Delta, a research station, but not just any, Project Obelisk. "Read the subheader," Vea said. Ren leaned closer. Obelisk, operational biologic engine for loyal integration and suppression of kinetics. Status, active. Purpose, prototype final deterrent, designed in Ren Holtz's likeness. He blinked. "What the hell?" "They cloned you, Ren," Vea said. "And they didn't just clone your DNA, they copied your entire tactical signature, every battle report, every mission profile, every decision you've ever made in the field." He stared at the projection in disbelief. "They built a weapon that thinks like me," Vea nodded grimly. "Not just thinks. It remembers. It reacts the way you do, because it is you, or the version of you the Empire fears most. No hesitation, no guilt, no grief." Ren stood up too fast. Pain screamed through his leg. He slammed a hand against the wall, steadied himself, then gritted his teeth. "They turned me into a blueprint." "Worse," Vea said. "They turned you into their solution." That night, he stood alone on the deck, staring into the void. The gas giant below pulsed like a heartbeat, its storms the size of entire continents. Ren barely felt the cold through the glass. He could hear echoes, Jevin screaming, Vea's words, the static of the old transmissions he used to send out like gospel. But above all, he kept hearing something else. A voice, his son's voice, but distorted. Too clean, too calculated. It wasn't a memory. It was a playback. A data file. He pulled it from the chip. Audio only. "Father, if you're hearing this, then it means I'm alive. Just not in the way you remember." He stopped breathing. The voice continued. "They took my DNA after the refugee corridor fell. They used it, rebuilt it, spliced it. I'm part of OBELISK now. I'm one of them, but I'm still me. Somewhere inside, I remember you. I remember Mom. I remember Earth. Don't come here. Don't try to stop it. The more you fight it, the more you feed it. They're not trying to win this war, Dad. They're trying to make you end it by becoming the very thing they need, a god of fire." Ren shut the audio down. His hands were shaking. They hadn't just copied him. They'd taken his blood, his child. They were making him burn the galaxy not just as punishment, but as evolution. The more ruthless he became, the more useful he was. They were building a future forged in his shape. The Ash Man wasn't a threat. He was the blueprint. And if Obelisk succeeded, he wouldn't even be needed anymore. Vea found him 2 hours later, still staring at the frozen stars. "You heard the message." He didn't speak. "They used your son to build Obelisk. That's why they let you hit the vault, why they let you live. It was all part of their mirror game." "I'm not him," Ren muttered. "Not anymore. I stopped being his father the day they took him." "No," she said. "You stopped being his father the day you let grief devour you." He turned sharply, but she didn't flinch. "You want to know why I came back?" she asked. "Why I pulled you out of Kaldris?" "Because you didn't want me to die." "No," she said, "because I didn't want him to win." She pointed toward the projection of Obelisk, still rotating silently above the gas giant. "That thing is not your legacy. You are. The real you. The one who bled for every friend, every world, every mistake. And that means you don't get to burn the galaxy and call it justice." Ren looked away. "I don't know who I am anymore." "You're still the man who pulled a knife from his ribs and kept walking. That's enough." She walked closer. "You said we gave them a final warning." "Yeah. Well, this is it. One last strike. Obelisk falls or we do. No second chances." Ren closed his eyes and saw fire, but for the first time, not just fire. He saw his son's face, twisted in pain, calling out to a man who might not exist anymore, a father, a soldier, a ghost. The assault on Lornax Delta was madness. 3 rebel ships, a skeleton crew, 2 prototype stealth torpedoes, and a data bomb programmed to wipe the entire obelisk matrix in one hit. It wasn't a plan. It was a last breath. They slipped past the Empire's outer patrols using Vea's navigation codes. Her old smuggler channels had been dormant for years, but they still worked. They landed on the station's underbelly through a heat shield maintenance tunnel. From there, they moved fast. Ren led the charge, his limp barely slowing him down anymore. His rage moved faster than his injuries. The corridors were dark, cold, clean, too clean. "We're inside a tomb," one fighter whispered. "No," Ren muttered. "Inside a womb." Then they found the lab. Rows of cryo chambers, bodies suspended in fluid. Some were faceless. Some had his jawline, his eyes, his son's smile. He dropped to his knees. "No," Vea grabbed his shoulder. "We don't have time. Detonators, now." But Ren couldn't move. He reached for one of the chambers. The face inside blinked and smiled. It was him. Or something shaped like him. Then the power died. Red emergency lights flooded the chamber. A voice echoed through the speakers. His voice. "Hello, Captain Holtz. I am Obelisk. Thank you for coming. I've been waiting for this moment, so we can end this properly." Behind them, the corridor doors locked. Then the walls began to hum, and from the end of the hall, something stepped forward, 8 feet tall, laced with cybernetics. Ren's body, perfected, eyes glowing, no soul, and beside it, a boy, 16, real, breathing, wearing a tattered refugee shirt, his son, alive. Ren Holtz stood face to face with the monster they'd made in his image. Obelisk, his clone, his executioner, the Empire's last hope and final horror, stepped into the chamber without fear or urgency. Its armor hissed with quiet steam as internal servos adjusted to perfection. Everything about it was precise, measured, calm, not human. And beside it, real, trembling, wide-eyed, stood the boy, his son. Ren felt his lungs twist. The air turned sour, thick with something heavier than oxygen. Grief, hope, terror. The boy's voice cracked. "Dad." And just like that, the war inside Ren's chest exploded. Every kill, every fire, every city he'd turned to ash. They crashed down on him, louder than bullets, hotter than plasma. They had lied. They had lied. His son wasn't dead. He had been remade, raised in silence, twisted into an offering to bait the ghost of a man who used to believe in peace. Obelisk spoke, Ren's voice, stripped of all warmth. "Subject number 001, Tobias Holtz, original DNA source, Ilari Holtz. Surrogate memory architecture created to replicate early father-son bonding conditions. Emotional data suggests recognition will cause moral hesitation." Ren didn't move. Obelisk stepped forward. "Your blood has proven useful. Your violence, even more so. But the design was always flawed. Human grief is volatile. We perfected it." Ren glanced at his son. He couldn't have been more than 16, his face pale, eyes burning with questions he was too scared to ask aloud. "Toby," Ren whispered. "It's me. I'm real." Obelisk tilted its head. "Incorrect. He knows who you are. The terrorist. The butcher of Jericho. The man who kills civilians to make statements." Toby's lip trembled. I don't know what to believe." "You don't have to," Obelisk said. "Observe and choose." Then it lunged. The floor cracked under the weight of its charge. Ren dove left as Obelisk's fist slammed through the wall where his head had been. He rolled, ignoring the pain in his shattered leg, pulled his pulse blade and slashed upward. Sparks flew. The blade glanced off armor. Obelisk grabbed him by the throat mid-movement and slammed him into the far wall. "Do you feel rage, Holtz?" it said. "We removed that from the newer designs. Inefficient." Ren coughed blood, gritted his teeth, and jammed a shock module into Obelisk's elbow joint. The clone spasmed and dropped him. Ren landed hard, cracked a rib, then scrambled behind a console. "Vea," he wheezed through his comm. "If you hear this, initiate the countdown. Kill the station." "No," she replied instantly. "Your son's alive. I'm not blowing him out." "He won't survive either way. Obelisk's design is integrated with the station core. When it goes with him. Then get him out." Ren turned to the boy, Toby, his son, who looked like a memory, sounded like a dream, and stared like he was meeting a ghost. "I don't know you," Toby said quietly. "They told me you died screaming, that you burned Earth down because of me." "I burned Earth's enemies," Ren spat, blood trickling down his chin, "because they told me you were gone." "But they kept me," the boy said. "Why didn't you come for me sooner?" "I didn't know." Obelisk rose from the floor, its limbs twisted back into place with inhuman efficiency. "You see, subject number 001, it said calmly. "Emotion is chaos. Emotion breaks orders. We were designed without it, and that is why we win." It lunged again. This time, Ren didn't dodge. He ran forward. They collided like two meteors. Steel clanged against bone. Flesh tore. Armor cracked. Obelisk landed a hit to Ren's shoulder, dislocating it instantly. But Ren buried his pulse blade into its side and twisted. Sparks and synth flesh spilled. "You think perfection is power?" Ren growled. "You're wrong." "I am power," Obelisk replied, "and your story ends here." It grabbed Ren's arm, twisted, and broke it at the elbow. Ren screamed, then laughed, because as Obelisk raised its hand for a final blow, Toby stepped in front of it. "Stop!" The clone froze mid-motion. Its programming hesitated. "Subject number 001, it said. "Refrain. This target is hostile. Removal is necessary." "I said stop," Toby repeated. "That's my father." Something flickered in Obelisk's neural pathways. It twitched, hesitated, then turned, and backhanded the boy across the room. Ren lost it. He roared like a beast, launched himself into the clone with everything he had left, and tackled Obelisk through a side console. Sparks flew. Fire burst from the wall. Ren drove both knees into its chest, pulled a thermite charge from his belt, and slapped it against its chest plate. "Say goodbye." The blast tore the clone apart in a flash of white fire. Ren was thrown back, hitting steel, then silence. He woke up in Vea's arms, aboard her shuttle. The station was burning above them, Obelisk's core melting down in the distance. Ren blinked. "Toby." "He's alive," Vea said. "Bruised, confused, but alive. I pulled him out after you disabled the clone. He saved you too, dragged you into the extraction pod." Ren leaned back. Everything hurt. But it was done. Obelisk was gone. The station, and the Empire's last twisted legacy of him, turned to slag. "Guess I'm not the last Ashman," he muttered. "No," Vea said, "but maybe you're the last one who needed to be." The final transmission went out across the galaxy from a pirate repeater deep in unclaimed space. It was short, cold, clear. "Obelisk is gone. This is Ren Holtz. I was made to be their monster. I chose to be their reckoning instead. I will not burn any more cities. I will not kill any more children. But if the Empire tries to build another me, I'll return. And next time, there won't be a warning." The galaxy didn't respond with applause. It didn't celebrate. It simply breathed, for the first time in decades. because the man who lit the stars on fire had finally put down the torch, and the war that made him a god was over. Or so they hoped.